My friends, do you remember the BFG? Wait until you see this massive one. Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. The Gibson BFG was first introduced in the year 2007. BFG stands for Barely Finished Guitar. They were these really weird, scaly Les Pauls. The tops weren't completely sanded down. They left it as the rough cut as they put in the top carve. But they didn't bother putting pickup covers on these things. We don't even have pickup rings. They're just drilled directly into the body. They're really bare bones rocker. You either understand these things or you don't. And I'm in the category of, I love these freaky alligator things. But approximately 3 years after their introduction, Gibson decided to do a BFG Bass. Although maybe they should have titled this one BFB. Let's go ahead and check this thing out. Ah yes, my friends. There it is. The giant BFG bass that they slapped 3 Thunderbird humbuckers in here. We've got a kill switch, we've got 4 controls, all the hallmarks of the BFG series, but in ultra crazy baritone scale lengths. Not technically baritone. I mean, you could convert this into a guitar in a roundabout way, but that would just be an extremely big guitar. Because usually baritone, like what, 28 inches, 30, maybe at the max. 34, you're just starting to get into 6-string bass category. But anyways, this is set up as a bass. They really didn't make that many of these things. If you actually look at the old Sweetwater website listings and other websites, it literally just says, we're only making a few of these things, so you better buy it now. I would hazard a guess that means maybe 100. I mean, you generally don't see these things show up too often. I've seen about 3 of them this year, and they all tend to disappear quickly. So even though this one's not necessarily all original, I decided to pick it up to document it, and maybe this video will help me find a cleaner one for my collection. So we've got the rough top that makes it look like an alligator. They only offered these in the worn ebony finish. It still utilizes the kill switch at the top. Unfortunately, this one's been broken, so we're going to have to replace that today. And sadly, somebody's removed our wooden knobs. Like, what on earth, guys? Leave those things alone. That's my favorite part about it. And then somebody has worn through the finish. But we've got that unmarked rosewood fretboard. And unlike the early BFGs, this actually does have a truss rod cover. You've got the worn aspect to the finish. Remember, it was called worn ebony, so that just means they kind of buff the edges a bit more. That includes on the neck and headstock. We've still got our clear back plates. We've got the typical BFG snap-off right where the neck pocket is. Most of them have that. Now, despite this thing weighing about 10 pounds, it still does have the chambered body, but there's so much mass in this neck that it definitely still weighs it down. But thankfully, this does not neck dive. And according to what I could find, they were about $1,600 brand new, but they did come with a hard shell case, which is pretty nice. The regular BFGs did not. And I don't have any case candy, but it probably just would have had this beautiful blue pamphlet, something like that. But man, doesn't this just look cool? I can't wait to find one of these for my personal collection that's maybe a little bit more original and clean. But until that day, let's go ahead and throw this one on the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs before we hear how this monstrous beast sounds. Disaster has struck, my friends. Probably should have let this one go. Somebody has replaced our pickups. I'd actually bought this bass from a dealer friend of mine, and he had purchased it, it looks like from Chicago Music Exchange. As I was doing some research on these, I found the old listing. And they said the pickups were original, so he did, and then I actually check it, and we find out that's a little bit different. But oh well, the review will go on. These originally came with the Thunderbird Plus pickups. They would have looked very similar to these as far as being a humbucker size and construction. They had a similar black exterior. And you might say, hey Trogly, how do you know those aren't original if nobody's ever documented the backside of one? That's 3 years after our serial number, so that pretty well gives it away. And I did a little bit of research on these SGD ND Series 3 pickups, and apparently they're like boutique bass pickups that everybody highly suggests. And I got the vibes that they're no longer being made. I could be wrong on that, but that's what a little poking around on the internet brought up. But you know what's really cool with this actually being humbucker size is if you really wanted to, you probably could convert this into a really extended scale baritone guitar. Because look at our bridge here. Got your individual saddles for adjustment. I didn't see any branding on the back of here, but it's a black chrome. Then here's a look at our tailpiece. It has a little bit more of an arch to it. But as far as casting marks go, it looks similar to what they were using in this era for their guitars. But just look how low the bridge and tailpiece is on this guitar. Having it on the down carve is quite fascinating. That's probably why they had to get a tailpiece that had a bit more of a curve to it. Normally on a Les Paul, your bridge would be like right here. You could potentially plug these holes and then maybe go for a 30-inch baritone guitar. I mean, that seems like you would have enough space to put pickups in there. But now that I actually see it measured out, yeah, probably better not to do that. But hey, if the mod collection collection guys happens to have one of these sitting around in their B-stock inventory, it would be a lot of fun. But anyways, originally we did have the wooden knobs. The guitar BFGs have two different size knobs. You've got two of the small ones for your volumes, and you've got a big one for your master tone. From the stock photos, originally you would have three big ones and one small. That's because they wired this volume tone. So since this is a kill switch from the factory, you don't actually have any type of a toggle. It's just neck volume, middle volume, bridge volume, so you can blend all your pickups or get them separately. So what's really strange about this thing is it gives off the vibe that it was played a lot and not played at all at the same time, because these satin finishes, any type of rubbing to them will instantly make them buff up in certain areas. But this actually looks factory stock clean to me, except for this area right here. This still has the maple top. You can see our cap right there. But let's move on to our mahogany neck with a rosewood fretboard. Full disclosure, CME's listing said this thing had been refretted. I can't see any obvious signs of that. Usually with refret jobs, you'll see a little bit of chipping around here. But since it doesn't have that, and we don't have any fret nibs on this model to begin with, if the job was cleanly done, you would never know. So I'm going to just say it's probably been refretted, because I bet the guy who traded this in to CME told them that. But our frets are beautiful on this, nice and shiny. But I was telling you earlier how there's always a chip right here on many BFGs. These were barely finished guitars. They just routed out the top a little bit too excessively. So you can actually see a dipping area right there. And BFG necks just kind of fall into the body like that. It's funny. It's a 34-inch scale length, so super ultra full scale bass. And I measure a 12-inch fretboard radius, which matches the spec sheet. Our nut width is 1.6 inches. By the 12th, that chunks up to 2.16. That might be a bit too thick for a guitar neck. But a 0.83 first fret neck depth, not too bad. And only 0.93 by the 12th. There's that neck profile at the first fret and the 12th fret. Definitely gets very wide and slims up a bit, but stays chunky in your first fretting area. Moving on to our headstock. Very similar to the other BFGs, you get your worn Gibson logo, and it's just complete satin. Shockingly clean for everything that's been changed on this thing. Truss rod's looking to be in good condition, and we can see our mahogany neck without any finish right there. The nut's probably been replaced because it's not glued down like Gibson normally does it. And usually you do replace a guitar's nut when you do a refret. And nothing on our truss rod cover, just pure black. It would be cool if it just said bass in really bold print. Alright, I've got it all strung back up and fixed now. So what I ultimately decided to do is just put a regular 3-way toggle switch in here. Because what had happened as this was being shipped around is it's just like when a toggle switch tip breaks, this received a big jolt from the top of the case. The internal mechanism of it has broke. Now, is there a way to fix it? Maybe, but I'm not that guy. So I'll include it in the case if somebody wants to go through that. Otherwise, I think this was in our best interest. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a spare skirted knob. I just happen to have a spare 3-way toggle, but I think it fits the whole barely finished vibe. But I decided to wire it as straight on down is full on sound, kill switch is not activated. That way, just in case somebody is strumming their bass with a pick or something, they don't accidentally flick it and kill their sound. They have to intentionally put it to the off position or even the middle position. Both of those are wired as the kill switch spot. Moving on to the back, let's take a look at our guts. So we've got the original Gibson branded pots, but you can definitely tell some wiring has been adjusted here. I didn't see it when I first saw this control cavity because just like the other shops, I saw the pickups looked what they were supposed to look like. I suppose the biggest giveaway probably would have been the black wires right here, not being the braided styling that Gibson normally uses. However, they're bass pickups. I'm not as familiar with those. So I was just thinking, oh yeah, they're just different because of that. Nope, but everything is functional here again. And here's what the 3-way toggle switch looks like on the back if you just want to set it up as a kill switch. You choose which position that you want it to be on and off for. On, obviously you put your wire there, and then you gotta put your ground. So after I stuff this with some paper towels, it secures it enough to use. Not gonna lie, looks pretty silly with the see-through backplate, but hey, it gets the job done even better than what I was showing you before. These see-through plates are surprisingly thick. We've got a couple of impressions on the back here, but again, miraculously, not a lot of buffing to the finish, turning it into a semi-gloss. So somebody lightly played, but heavily played at the same time. But I'm really curious about the dimensions of this, because a normal Les Paul is 9, 13, 2 inches thick. We've got about 9 and 2/16. This one's just a little shy of 13 and 2 inches. So yeah, it actually is the regular size of a Les Paul.
Now we can run up the back of the neck. You can make the argument that this is player's wear, but a lot of the BFGs came from the factory, especially in this area. We've got our Grover tuners back here and our serial number dating this one to the 4th day of 2010. All said and done, for being chambered, it's still incredibly heavy, 10 pounds, 3.2 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how one of these sounds with replaced pickups.
Now that we know all about the BFG bass, what are my final thoughts on this thing? It's so much fun. Had they not spec'd it out quirkily on top of making a BFG a bass, I don't think I would have liked it as much, but 3 humbuckers in here is just a little bit ridiculous. Now personally, I'm not a big fan from a demoing standpoint of the 3 volume knob positions, but if you're a recording artist, you can find out what you like, dial it in. But for my eyes, I want to show you all the tones, and that's just physically impossible, because I mean, you could have 25% neck, 50% middle, 75% bridge, all on. There's just so many combinations. And I don't have a true bass amp. What you heard today was just me running it through Logic Pro using some of their fun effects. So I had a great time with this thing. I am just gutted that it's not the original pickups, because my initial plan for this was I was just going to replace the kill switch from a donor BFG, but since, I mean, the pickups ended up being non-original, might as well just do the 3-way toggle switch, because then the next owner of this, they could opt to just wire that
up like neck, middle, and bridge, and then just have like a fade switch down here or something. So it gives them some options. But hey, if nothing else, now you know a BFG bass does exist. If you happen to have one that's all original, or you would like to trade your original one for an upgraded one, feel free to let me know, because I mean, Thunderbird pickups, they're generally pretty muddy. I thought these had some pretty good clarity. Just depends which position you're going for. All right, troglodytes, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day, and you might even enjoy this next one.